Hi everyone, John here from LookSmart Home Inspections right here in New Jersey. And today I want to talk to you guys about some of the things that you guys can look for when you're touring a house before you put an offer on that house. And I think these things are important because some of you guys have telling me you struggle with understanding what to look for when you're doing that initial look of the house. And I know it's difficult because you have so many things on your mind. You're trying to picture your family there. You're trying to see what room would work for what family member. Will the kids go here in bedroom number one or bedroom number two? And how does a family room work for you? All of that stuff. But there are certain things that you guys can look for when you're thinking about, putting an offer on a home. These things you don't really have to go digging that deep. We're not doing a home inspection. But what we're doing is just getting an idea of some of these bigger potential problems. So let me explain some of the issues, and hopefully you'll find it helpful. One or two of these issues may pop into your mind on that next home that you're touring. Things are so expensive here in New Jersey. You want to make sure that you do every piece of due diligence you can, and that includes understanding some of these bigger problems you can maybe look at on your initial visit to the house. The first thing that's crucially important, that's so clearly visible when you go and visit a home, is the exterior grading. Anybody can do this. Anybody can determine if the grading is good or is poor. What we don't want is grading or ground around the exterior of the home, whether that be a hillside or one side of the house, the left side, the right side, the rear of the home. That's going to direct water towards the structure of the house. This is crucially important because any water that gets directed towards the house has the potential to end up in the house, right? We want to avoid this at all costs because this is like number one on your guys' mind for the most part is water in the basement, the crawl space, lower level, whatever you have. So when you're looking at a house, I want you to note around the whole entire perimeter of the home. So a lot of these homes are going to have areas that are sloped that's going to direct water towards the house. And these are areas of vulnerability, right? When water is being directed toward a foundation wall, which is porous in nature, over time, that water can enter into the home, especially when we have lots of rain. If we have 3 or 4 days of rain, and we've had them for sure, like every year we have, significant rainfall for 3 or 4 days, and that ground gets saturated. And then we're directing all the water towards the foundation. What's going to happen? You're probably going to have water entry, water seepage, water infiltration, or possibly flooding. So you want to make sure that your ground is away from the house, right? So we want to see that the ground around the whole entire perimeter of the home has a nice gentle slope away from the foundation walls. And we're not talking about a crazy slope. We're talking about a 1/4 inch per foot away from the foundation walls, okay? So that's what we're looking for. And if you're touring a home and you have the back of the house is this steep slope and it's got this steep cliff, where's the water going to end up? It's going to end up close to the home. The more the water ends up close to the home, the more problem you're going to have with water seepage and keeping water out of the basement. So this is crucially important to look at the ground around the house because I would say over 90% of the homes that I look at, they're going to have some problem with the exterior grading. Not to any super extent, but most homes really need improvements around the exterior grade. It's crucially important. Now, along with the exterior grade goes where's the water going that's coming off the roof, right? Gutters are a good thing. We need gutters on homes, right? We need gutters and downspouts that discharge water away from the exterior of the house. So if you're touring a home and you're walking around the exterior and you're seeing downspouts discharging too close to the corners or sides of the home, that's a potential area of water infiltration because all of that downspout water, and I'm talking about thousands of gallons a year, are going to enter close to that home and can possibly seep in. Think about all of the roof water cascading into a gutter and then ending up in one corner downspout, right? That's hundreds and maybe thousands of gallons of water going right where you don't want it to be going, next to the foundation walls. So these downspouts have to be directed away. The gutters have to be unclogged, free flowing, so your roof drainage system works properly. You couple that with the ground that has a nice taper, a nice slope away from the foundation walls, and you know what? You're gonna keep water out of your basement in most cases. So people spend fortunes on basement water infiltration systems, sump pumps, perimeter drains. Like, these are $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 of basement work. And then I go to the house, and then the downspouts are just right next to the foundation. But the waterproofing contractor's not going to tell you, hey, you got to relocate these downspouts and keep your gutters clean. Why? Because he's going to make $30,000 or $40,000 putting a new system in your basement, right? And I'm not saying that every water problem can be solved with regrading and getting your downspouts and cleaning your gutters. But I'm telling you, a lot of them, you can really mitigate and lessen the probability for sure if you control that groundwater. So if you're thinking about buying a house and the grading is negative, what we call negative pitch going towards the home, that's a problem. You got to keep your antenna up for that. Hire a home inspector who's going to definitely look for water penetration in the basement and understand how that exterior drain and downspouts and gutter system and grade work as a system in keeping your basement dry. So look for that when you're thinking about buying this house. The next thing I want you guys to look at, and most of you guys don't pay any attention at all, is the roof. So 90% of the roofs, if not more, in New Jersey are asphalt shingle roofs. We don't really have a lot of fancy specialty roofs here in New Jersey. Most of them are architectural asphalt shingle roofs, right, or dimensional shingle roofs. So if you look at that roof and you see cracked, worn shingles, shingles that are missing, shingles that are loose, shingles that have dropped, shingles that are raised, shingles that are curled, then hey, you know what? You have an old roof. And this is especially true with a 3-tab just general shingle roof. That's non-dimensional shingles. And that shingle is the more traditional shingle. It's not the thick shingle. It just kind of lays flat to the roof. You've all seen them. Generally speaking, those types of roofs are going to be older. Most people now, given the what we find here in New Jersey, most people put architectural or dimensional shingle roofing on the home. These have a longer life expectancy. They look better. They're more durable. There's a lot of pluses with those. But then sort of on the older side of the spectrum, you have asphalt 3-tab shingles that are non-dimensional. And these are sort of the older roofs. So if you have a roof like that and you see just problems just looking from the ground, I'm not saying you have to get up on the roof. I'm not saying you have to have a high-powered camera. What I'm saying is you can just get some basic information about the roof age. And if you don't know the roof age, maybe you can ask the listing agent, hey, just curious, do you know the age of the roof on the home? Then maybe he or she would be able to get that information for you. Or maybe you have a seller's disclosure. I mean, sometimes those are correct and sometimes they're not. But at least it gives you a starting point to understand how old the roof is. Most asphalt roofs are going to have a life expectancy of around 20 to 25 years. Now, those 3-tab shingles that I'm talking about, they're on the lower end of things. They're sort of, just 20-year life expectancy. They don't have a lot of life expectancy there. So if you have one of those roofs, you better let your insurance company know, because I've had clients who I've warned and said, hey, you know what? There's insurance companies out there that will not insure your roof if it's older than like 16 or 17 years old. And, you guys don't understand that, but I live this every day. I understand that. So please heed your home inspector's advice. If you have an older roof, you really need to be speaking to your insurance company. Because just because you're okay with this older roof doesn't mean your insurance company is going to be, because they are now super conservative. And I've seen cases where they've underwritten a policy and then then they've sent an inspector out to take pictures of the roof. And if they don't like what they see, they're going to give you 60 or 90 days to completely remove and replace the roof. And as a new buyer, you may not have that war chest handy. You may not have budgeted that information. So it's crucially important that you understand the roof age of the home. Now, when you have a home inspection, sure, that home inspector is going to obviously give you feedback, of course, understanding the condition of the roof. But before you even go to that stage, look up and you'll be able to maybe get some more information about the roof. Is it old? Am I looking at a newer roof or an older roof? That can kind of help you. It'll even help you understand if you're going to go in with what offer you're going to go in. If I have to put a new roof on this house, am I going to go over asking price? I don't know. Maybe you are in this crazy market. But at least having the information and using your eyes as a tool to understand the age of the roof and get a better understanding of it, it's going to serve you well. So make sure you look up at that roof when you're buying a house. Now let's talk about a specific type of roof, and I'm talking about a low-sloped roof. So if you have a low-sloped roof on your home, and what I'm talking about is a roof with very low pitch, that roof is more vulnerable to leakage, water retention, ice retention, snow retention, and many more problems than a steep pitched roof. Now, you don't even have to have a full low sloped roof on your house. You could have one portion of the house that's got a low sloped roof, and that is going to be your most vulnerable area. Steep pitched roofs, they shed water. Water comes off of them quickly. Low sloped roofs, water generally retains, especially if there's ice and snow on the roof. When that snow and ice is melting, can be very problematic. And I know that there's going to be some, roofing contractors out there that say there's nothing wrong with the low sloped roofing. Well, you know what? They are absolutely 100% more vulnerable to leakage than a steep pitched roof, for sure. So if you're buying a house with any portion of the roof that's got a low slope, and I'm talking just sort of a low slope, a real small pitch on it, and some of the roofs that we see that have a low slope, they don't have any pitch, and that's even worse. You probably won't be able to look at that and determine that yourself, but your home inspector will. But just your antenna should go up. If any part of the house that you're thinking about buying has a low sloped roofing system, you better put your antenna up, and I want you to look up at that ceiling when you go inside the house and look for any water staining or problems, because that is going to be your vulnerable area, that roofing system. Next thing I want to talk to you about is foundation wall cracking. So some of you guys look at a house, and I get the phone call, and you say, I'm worried about this foundation wall crack. It's at the right rear corner. And I go, can you send me a picture? I want to look at it. I just want to get an idea of what the crack looks like. And you say, no, I didn't take any pictures of it. And I go to myself, that's not good. So what I want you guys to do is when you're looking at, you're not foundation wall crack experts. I understand that for sure. But if you're looking at a house and you see something like a foundation wall crack, a step crack, a horizontal crack, even a vertical crack that's wider than, you would normally think that would be correct for for normal settlement, just snap a picture of it. Take a photo. It doesn't hurt. It takes 2 seconds. We all have our camera phones on us. Just take a picture of it. And when you're calling home inspectors to say, hey, you know what, I'm worried about this crack, send them the photo. I've looked at maybe hundreds of pictures that people have taken in homes that they're, thinking about buying. So at least maybe I can give them some initial feedback about my thoughts. Maybe they can get a good night's sleep when I say, that's just pretty normal. But or sometimes when I can say, boy, that's a horizontal crack that you see on the exterior of the foundation, that's not really normal at all. So these foundation wall cracks are something that you can see from the outside. Now, I understand you can't see a lot of the foundation from the outside because the majority of the foundation obviously is going to be below ground. It's a foundation. So that, leave that to us, the home inspectors who go into the house to examine the basement in the foundation. But if you see something on the outside, and most of the cracking that you're going to be able to see on the outside is pretty much caused by something called differential movement, which is like the corner of the house is moving and settling at a faster rate than the rest of the foundation. And that generally has to do with our old friends, the downspouts and water control issues, right? Most of this movement or differential movement that we see that creates stair step cracks at the corners of the house that you guys are really worried about, and you should be worried about it, are caused by downspouts that are directing water too close to the exterior foundation walls and water control problems. So my advice to you when you're looking at a house, just have your cell phone ready and take a couple of pictures of problem areas that you want to alert your home inspector. If they're a good home inspector, they're going to welcome that. People send me pictures all the time. Customers, people who are not even customers send me pictures and ask me what this is or what that is. I don't care. I'm trying to be helpful. And most of us in the field want to just be helpful. We're here to help people make purchase decisions about homes and provide, useful information. So take those pictures, send them to your prospective home inspector, and I think you'll be doing a good thing. But look for those exterior foundation wall cracks. Snap a photo of them. The next thing I want to talk to you guys about is look at the deck on the back of the house, right? There's a lot of things that you guys can look for on a deck yourself. You don't have to be a home inspector to know that some of these decks just are garbage and they're old and they're made terribly. So you don't want that in a house that you're thinking about, spending a lot of money for. So when you're looking at a deck, there's a couple things that you can do. As you walk up the stairs, are the stairs nice and level and even? Give a push to the guardrails, left and right. Give a push to the guardrails up on the main deck platform of the deck. Are they loose? Or will they hold somebody back? If they're not, that's going to be a problem. It's a safety issue. So it's something that you can easily check as the deck guardrails yourself. So make sure you do that. As you're standing on the deck, I want you to just put your feet apart about 2 or 3 feet, and I want you to rock back and forth on that deck top, right? If you see that deck swaying like a ship, that's a problem. That lateral movement is unsafe and can cause that deck to actually rip out from its connection point at the ledger where the ledger board meets the house. And that's where actually most deck failures exist, is that lateral movement going back and forth that causes that potential problem, and great injury can occur from that. So that's one thing you can also look for is that lateral movement. Also look for the condition of the wood. Is it a synthetic deck, or is it a pressure treated wood deck? Now everything has a life expectancy. So the typical life expectancy of deck components is about 20 years. So if you're looking at a house and it's got the original deck, the house is 35 years old, you have to budget for a deck. These things don't last forever. I want you to look for wood rot on the deck planks. Take a walk under the deck if you can. Some of these decks are 2 stories high. Take a look at the deck from afar. See if the deck is moved or shifted, if one side is higher than the other. These are all big problems that you can spot, right? You don't have to be a home inspector to do it. But if you're going to put an offer on a house, you just want to make sure that your offer is really commensurate with the condition of the house. I mean, decks can be $30,000 or $40,000 to replace. So just take a look at that deck. I think you'll be doing yourself a good service, because most of you don't do that. You just don't even go up on the deck, which I'm very surprised about. But make sure you look at these things on the outside, and then so you have a better understanding of kind of what you're getting into. Look at that deck. The next thing I want you guys to understand is what kind of exterior siding do you have, right? Do you have vinyl? Do you have aluminum? Do you have stucco? Do you have synthetic stucco? Do you have asbestos fiber siding? Or do you have fiber cement siding? And you may not know what any of this siding is. But one thing you will understand is if I'm buying a stucco house, am I buying a house with synthetic stucco, right? You want to know this, right? The exterior of your home, you want to know what kind of siding it is. And if you don't know what kind of siding it is, ask your agent, ask the listing agent, ask the seller of the house. Hey, what kind of siding? I don't know what kind of siding this is. I want to know what kind of siding it is. Most of us can spot aluminum siding, vinyl siding. Some of the things that are more difficult to spot are asbestos fiber cement siding, hardy plank, which is like another fiber cement siding, obviously newer, not asbestos containing. And most of us understand what stucco looks like, okay? So if you're buying a house that's stucco on the outside, you have some, you have potentially more issues than other siding or exterior cladding surfaces. Now, people will disagree, but this is my experience, and you can disagree all you want, but I'm telling you for sure this is the case. Many times, stucco exterior siding is installed incorrectly, especially the newer stuccos, like the EIFS or EIFS stucco, the synthetic stucco, or even the newer hard coat stuccos. They're installed incorrectly, and they have all kinds of deficiencies with these stuccos. So I want you to understand something. If you're buying a house with a stucco exterior, you have to do your due diligence with that exterior. You have to hire a home inspector who understands stucco and its defects to properly tell you what's going on and protect you. Because what we don't want is water to get behind that exterior cladding, that exterior stucco. Because when water gets behind exterior stucco, especially the synthetic stuccos, it doesn't get out. It has a really hard time draining. And if water can't escape from exterior stucco and the drain system is not there or improperly installed, you can have tons of problems behind your wall that you have no idea about. You know, entire homes' exteriors had to be rebuilt because of water infiltration behind stucco walls. Class action lawsuits have taken place. So if you have an exterior home, especially with the synthetic stuccos, and another thing is the insurance companies do not like synthetic stuccos. And if you have that, you better make sure that your insurance company is going to be okay with insuring that house with that exterior stucco. Now, you can do other layers of due diligence with stucco. Now, we come in as a home inspector. I'm going to find probably a lot of problems with your stucco. But there are specific stucco inspections that you can take place that actually do moisture testing behind the stucco, and that's probably worth it. If you're spending a lot of money on a house, you probably want a specialty stucco inspection for that hard coat stucco or that synthetic stucco. So know what kind of exterior cladding you're purchasing, because many times I go to a house and it's a stucco home exterior, and the client doesn't say anything to me because they don't know what their exterior siding is. They have no clue. But look, you have to have some sort of responsibility as a buyer to understand just the basic things about the house that you're spending, money for. And one of those things is, what kind of exterior siding do I have, and what are some of the pitfalls regarding that exterior siding? So if you're buying a house, you have to understand what type of foundation is under the house. Is it a basement? Is it a crawl space? Or is it a slab? So a basement, we're all familiar with those, right? Most of the homes in New Jersey are constructed on basements. You walk down, it's a full room. You can stand up. You can see everything. If it's unfinished, that's ideal for a home inspection. The next thing is a crawl space. And we can sort of equate a crawl space with a short basement. These are usually 3 or 4 feet high, and they're not a full basement, and they're difficult to enter and inspect. And most homeowners don't get into the crawl space to look and see if anything's going wrong. So that's the issue, right? That's the issue. If you're buying a house on a crawl space, or even a home has an addition that is built on a crawl space, we're likely as home inspectors to find a lot of problems in those spaces. And the thing that I don't understand is that I go to homes and people don't, buyers, my clients, they don't even understand what kind of basement or foundation that they have. Now, again, you guys have to take some type of responsibility. I mean, if you're spending $800,000 on a house here, you really need to know what's under the house. And if that's a crawl space, you have to make sure that crawl space is accessible. Because when you hire a home inspector, your home inspector is going to go and try to enter into that crawl space and traverse that crawl space and inspect it to best of his or her ability. But if they can't enter and that crawl space has access that is too small, and their body won't fit in the crawl space, that's an open risk to you, the buyer of the house. Or even if that crawl space has safety issues, if it has electrical wires dangling, if it has asbestos insulation in there, if it's a dirt crawl space, if it has abandoned piping or electrical, your home inspector is going to deem that crawl space unsafe. They're not going to enter that, and they shouldn't because of safety reasons. And that crawl space is going to be an open risk to you, the buyer. So one thing you guys have to make sure you understand is, are there any crawl spaces around under this house that I'm buying? And they may not even be readily apparent. They could have put an addition on the back of this house 25 years ago and put it on a crawl space, and you guys have no clue. You have no idea that is on a crawl space. Then the home inspector gets there and finds an access either outside, under a deck, or inside the basement, and then they have to enter the crawl space, and then there's all these problems. There's all these problems that we find in these spaces because nobody goes in there. Nobody goes in there except us. We go in there. So you have to make sure that you understand what's under the house: basement, crawl space, or slab. So if you're buying a slab house, that's a house that has no crawl space, has no basement. That's basically built like, say, take for example, like a garage would be built on a cement slab. So that's a different kind of unique house. Per se that you should definitely buy a slab house, but they have their own type of problems with sort of maintenance. And one of the biggest problems that we find in slabs is termites, and doing termite inspections properly in slab homes because of the lack of access to the structure, right? So everything is finished. It's like completely finished. There's no basement. There's no access to structure. We don't know what's going on in the walls, and we don't know if termites are eating half your house if you buy the slab home. So that's another risk you have when buying that type of a house. And the agents and everybody will say, "Oh, everything's fine. There's no issue with this." Nonsense. Absolute nonsense, right? So if you're buying a slab home, you have certain inherent risks to buying that house. If you're buying a home on a crawl space, you have certain inherent risks that you are taking from buying that house. And if you're buying, like we said before, a house with stucco or synthetic stucco, you're taking some inherent risks associated with buying a home with those type of things. So make sure you understand what's under the house. It's very important. So when you actually move into the home and you're touring the basement, I want you to open your nose. Make sure your nose is free and breathing and can smell all the smells of the basement, right? So let your nose tell a story. Does it smell musty or moldy? Are there odd odors in the basement? Because if it does, likely to have a mold problem or water intrusion problem. I want you to use your eyes when you're looking around the basement. Just don't look haphazardly. I want you to actually look at the lower baseboard areas of the basement. Are there any water stains? Are there any areas of water damage? If possible, I want you to look under the basement steps, because usually when people get ready to sell a home, they do some nifty painting inside walls and the basement floor. But you know what? They don't usually paint under the steps. So if you can see some water staining under the steps, you can understand that your home has had water infiltration in the past. To what extent, I don't know. Leave that to your home inspector, but at least it puts the radar up. It puts the antenna up, that, hey, this house has had water in the basement before. So definitely look around for that. Look for any black, green, or white mold in the basement. And what I like to do in a basement, of course, when I'm doing a home inspection, is open the closet doors. Look inside the closet doors, because those closet doors, that where that closet is, can be very musty, can be very moldy, and problems can occur. Look at the bottom of those interior basement doors. A lot of times you'll see that water stain. You'll see that, 6 or 4 inches of water stain on the basement, on these closet doors in the basement, when the seller says, no, we've never had any water in this basement, right? That's wrong. So make sure you look for these things. Keep your nose open, keep your eyes open when you're touring the basement, when you're just simply looking around at the basement. So you should also find out if there is a sump pump or a drain system in the basement, because these things, if it's an older home, they're not usually put in just for fun, right? They're usually put in because they've experienced a problem. Newer homes, yeah, they're put in. Older homes, generally, these systems were put in because there was problems in the house. So I want you to understand that, because you guys keep telling me that water in the basement is number one or number two on your priority list of problems, right? So understand before. Now, that seller's disclosure, sometimes people lie, right? That doesn't, I know people never lie on real estate transactions, right? So use that seller's disclosure with a grain of salt, right? It's good to have, not to be relied on, right? Use your own understanding. Look around that basement for any kinds of water infiltration, musty odors, smelly odors, things like that. Keep your eyes open for that sump pump and perimeter drain system. Things that you can do when you're touring a home. When you're inside the house, kitchen, dining room, bedrooms, family room, I want you just to look around and look at the ceilings. Do you see any water stains on those ceilings? That could be a past or present leak, right? You want to just kind of look around to see those water stains. And then you can ask the question later. You can have your home inspector later kind of follow up. And generally, these water stains are going to be under bathrooms, under kitchens, under radiators, under baseboard heating, things like that. Sometimes you'll see in a garage, there's water staining when you have a bathroom above the garage where the pipes froze. I mean, we won't really get into the weeds on that right now, but a lot of times we'll find that. But open your eyes when you're looking around the home and just check for these water stains. Just look around. Just take your time as you go through the house. Make mental or actually real notes. You all have a cell phone. You can just text yourself some notes. Hey, there's a water stain in the master bedroom above this window. What is it? And then, this is the information that you can maybe relate to your home inspector, when you're interviewing for your home inspector. So keep your eyes open in even the rooms of the house, bedrooms, family rooms, living rooms, bathrooms. Understand and look for those water stains. Do you ever go into a house and you just feel unsteady on your feet because the floors are all sloped like this, one way or the other way? That's another thing that you guys can look for. Now, there's normal settlement, right? Houses settle. They shift, they move, materials shrink and expand. There's the whole, things are very fluid in a home. They're not stagnant. They're pretty fluid. But if you go into a house and you have significant sloping, I'm talking about half an inch, and going to one direction, and that's an issue, okay? They're not supposed to do that. Even old homes are not supposed to do that. So that should kind of put the bells off that, hey, you know what? We could have a structural problem or a load path problem where the loads in the home are not taken all the way down to structure. And that's why we have these sagging or sloped floors. Look for that when you're touring a home. Keep a mental note of it. Tell your home inspector about that, because you want that home inspector to pay attention to those sloped floors and try to give you an understanding of, maybe what's causing it. But chances are that's going to be a structural problem. And with the nature of flip houses today, here's what I find a lot, is that everybody wants an open concept. So you take a 1950s house and you want an open concept, so you remove two walls in the lower level. You remove the wall that separates the living room from the front porch, and then you remove the wall from the kitchen to the living room and create this big open space. Well, that's great. But if you don't accommodate the structural loads above and make sure they have a load path down the structure below, eventually that's gonna sag. Your floors above in the second floor are gonna sag significantly because you don't have a continuous load path, because your genius home flipper creating an open concept, remove two structural walls, and now you have a big mess on your hands. So understand that when you're buying a flip house, that these things are more prevalent to crop up later on. And a good home inspector, he or she, should be able to pick these things out when they take an old house and make it an open concept. Because you know what? Back in the 40s, 50s, 1930s, they didn't really have open concepts, right? We have open concepts now because that's what people want. But back in the day, the rooms were pretty fragmented. They were smaller type rooms. We had a one family room, we had a kitchen, we had a den, we had a front porch. Now it's all open. That's what people want. But you remove the structure of that house, you're in for a problem. So understand, if you're buying a flip house, you got to keep your antenna up also and ask the questions. Have any walls been removed here? And make sure you get those permits, because any modifications to the structure in a house require a proper permit, open and closed, from the municipality. And then even if you have the permit, doesn't mean you're not going to have problems, but at least you have some measure of protection. When you're looking at the bathrooms in a home, turn the water on. Flush the toilet. Turn the hot and cold water on. How's the water pressure? Is it lousy? Is it good? Nobody really wants to have a house with very low water pressure. And that's a lot of times, having low water pressure at a faucet or a kitchen sink is, kind of news to you guys. It's kind of, you weren't aware that water pressure was there, but it's good to know. That's not a catch-all. That's not a multi-fixture test for, functional water supply, but it'll give you some information. And make sure you look in the showers too. Are there any loose or cracked tiles? Because shower work is expensive too. Look at the shower pan. The shower pan is the base of the shower. And if you buy an old house and you have a cracked pan, that's all going to have to come out and be replaced, because that can leak and cause problems later. So, look in the bathrooms for sure. Just don't stick your head in. Run some water. Flush the toilet. How's everything look for you? You know a good flush on a toilet. You know what decent water pressure looks like. You know what cracked tiles look like in a shower base or shower surround. So make mental notes of these things. Take some pictures if you want to. And at least you have a better understanding of what you're buying, but even before you have your home inspection. A couple other tips that I can give you, especially, this is if you're a little bit more bold and you go into a house and you kind of want to get into more of the nitty-gritty type of stuff. So when you're looking at your boiler, with a furnace, this is more difficult to do, because most of the furnace data plates are inside the cabinets. And I'm not asking you to take the front or lower cabinets off of the furnace. That's, leave that to your home inspector. But if you have a boiler, right, a steam boiler or a hydronic boiler, baseboard radiator heat, generally that data plate on that boiler is going to indicate the age of the boiler. So even if you can't figure it out then, just take a picture of the data plate. Go home, look at the serial number, do some online research, and then you'll most likely be able to understand the age of the boiler. So if you're looking at a house and your boiler looks like it's got a few miles on it, snap a picture. Go home, do some research. Most of these boilers are going to have a life expectancy of about 25 years. If you find out your boiler is 35 years old, well, then you know what? You got a budget for a new boiler, right? And so maybe you adjust your offer to that issue. And then you could do the same thing with a water heater. Water heater has a life expectancy of about 10 years, both electric and gas water heaters. You can take a picture. And some of these water heater manufacturers, they put the date right on them. They're easy to see, usually, and most of them will put the date. Not all of them, some of them. And then you can see. So if your water heater's back from 2002, you're going to need a water heater, right? Because a water heater life expectancy is about 10 years. And so you don't want to be caught surprised. Now, of course, your home inspector will go through that with you and tell you how old, the systems are in the home. That's a very important aspect of home inspection. But if you want to get a leg up just to do a little bit more of your research so you understand the age of your equipment, by all means, go ahead. And you can do the same thing with an exterior air conditioning. Although it's sometimes more difficult, some of the manufacturers of exterior air conditioners make it a little bit more difficult to figure out the age of them. But if you take a picture and you know the manufacturer, you can go back and research that serial number. It doesn't take any great skill to do that. And then you can understand the age of the exterior air conditioning, which, life expectancy of the outside unit is about 10 or 15 years. So at least doing this way, you have more information. When you're touring a home, you can get an idea of the general condition of the house. Is the house looking good? Do the owners of the home have pride in ownership, or is everything just a freaking mess, right? If everything is just a mess, then you're likely to have problems. Sometimes I can't believe the condition of the houses and the kind of the disarray that exists. So if a person has like disarray in their living arrangements or I mean, how do you think they're going to maintain the house? Probably not that well. So that should kind of put a red flag up at you. These guys who live in this home are kind of haphazard. Everything is kind of strewn about. There's really, no order to anything. They're likely to have some, deferred maintenance. So you can make some inferences just on the general condition of the carpeting, the walls, the ceilings in the home, how they keep the kitchen, how they keep the bathrooms, the order of the basement. You can kind of get an idea of sort of the maintenance that was done on the home. So, make sure you make a mental note of that. If the house is a disaster, you know what? There's going to be some things that home inspector is going to find that you don't know about for sure. That's it for right now, guys. Hopefully that helped you. I just want to give you some information, and maybe it helps you if you're looking at a house. I know it's a crazy market and it's hard to buy a home, so don't be discouraged. But if you go into a house, maybe you can understand some of these problems and kind of relate it and look for these things that are important that you can look for in a home even before you put your offer in, even when you're touring the house. There's things that even if you have no inspection or you're not handy, anything like that, all you need is eyes and a nose, and you can look for some of these things. So thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.